basically one of the pioneers setting the standard of what cookbooks were and are. You're basically one of the first real big people with Moosewood Cookbook. How is this book different from your previous 11 cookbooks? Because it is different, but also it has that continuity.
Well, there's definitely been a cumulative sense of understanding what cooking is. And I'll speak for myself, I can't speak for my colleagues, but when I first started writing cookbooks, I was not at the pinnacle of any knowledge. I was 20 years old, and I was at the beginning. I had a quest for what is cooking, and I grew and changed, but so did food itself, so did cuisine, and what was available to cook with was so radically different and so reduced from what we have now. I'm guessing from the looks of this very seasoned audience that we're a similar vintage. So, but because when I try to describe this to younger people, they're very confused. When I say that when I first wrote the Moosewood Cookbook, you could not find a bottle of good olive oil in this country in a supermarket. It was unheard of. Bell pepper was a green pepper, and it was bitter, and a sweet red bell pepper was almost unheard of. It wasn't unheard of, but it was a delicacy. And so there was so much less in the produce market to choose from, and it wasn't as good. And so what's come up along with my own learning how to cook, I've learned how to cook through my own cookbooks, the availability of good ingredients that make it so much easier to write a cookbook because they're so good with so little done to them has been something that's changed along the lines. But I've also learned about how to cook, and everyone's taste has changed, and also our relationship to time has changed. And cooking exists in time. And as a cookbook author, I have to gauge what your willingness will be to spend X amount of time in the kitchen, X amount of dollars at the grocery store. It's something that I feel is a responsibility of a cookbook author to focus on.
Do you find it more with people's lives being busier today, that people spend less time and you're writing for that, or are you finding that people are really demanding greater food, feeding themselves, their health is more important, and as a result, even though their schedules are busier, they have more of ability to spend more time in the kitchen and getting what they want?
The problem is there is a problem. People want both of those things, and they want somehow. I have not had a single person ever say to me, "I am so bored. I have so little to do. Could you please make recipes that are more complicated and take longer?" That's my own issue. I've never heard that, you know. And yet I do hear, "I don't have time to cook." And back when I wrote my first maybe 3 cookbooks, maybe from the mid-70s through the late 80s, I didn't know anyone who was busy. It just wasn't a busy culture. That people were, whatever you were doing, whatever time it took that amount of time, and you didn't think about it. It's sort of like how people's relationship to being on the internet is now. So forgive me for having an opinion, but I do get a little bit bent out of shape when people say, "Oh, I have no time to cook," and then I'm watching it. Do you ever say, "I have no time to check my Twitter feed," or to Google every subject that kind of comes to mind and just kind of go down the rabbit hole of your social media? It's like, "Oh, I don't have time." No, to do that. But there's something about cooking that we're not at ease. If I have one goal, it's to make people more at ease with time and with food and with cooking.